office, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our panelists and our participants. I want to thank you for joining us today. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Lisa Norrid. I am the Pre-Law Pathways Coordinator. I'm housed in the College of Arts and Sciences, but we serve students regardless of academic major. So from across campus, I've had alums contact me who are thinking about possibly coming back to school and going on to law school. So regardless of classification, freshman through senior, grad students, and prospective students we assist coming in the door to USM. So it's been really exciting to be able to assist so many students at varying points in their collegiate career. I'm joined today by my co-host, Jolie Sellers, who is our pre-law, pre-professional advisor on our Gulf Park campus. So we are making sure we have students on both campuses that will be well served in the area of pre-law. Our objectives today are for our esteemed panelists, which I will introduce to you all shortly, to give you helpful information about the law school admission process, any information they'd like to share about their institution. Also, we're bringing you tips directly from the expert students, so we want you to feel comfortable to ask questions. We've asked them to share their strategies for success. What does it take to have a competitive law school application? What are their expectations? I'm sure you'll hear some commonalities among institutions, but then there may be some things that are unique to each school that, hey, we really like to hear about this or see this. So we want you to feel comfortable interacting. I tell most of the students that I work with, start early developing relationships with the law schools that kind of on your top 5 list. Places I would like to go to law school, reach out. They want to know you and they want to know you early on. So our format today, we've asked our panelists to share their remarks regarding law school, and we'll go in alphabetical order by institution. So I'll be starting with Katie Grayson from University of Alabama. Once our panelists conclude their remarks, we will open the floor for hopefully lots of questions from our students. So without further ado, let me introduce our panelists to you. We are extremely excited that we have some great folks with us today who are willing to lend their time in their lunch hour to us. So from the University of Alabama School of Law, we have Katie Grayson. Katie serves as the Assistant Director for Law School Admissions. So thank you, Katie. Glad you could be here with us. From LSU Law, we have Mr. Jake Henry. Mr. Henry serves as Assistant Dean of Student Affairs. Congratulations. I know you've been in that role now a couple of years, and we appreciate you being here, Jake. Jake is also a USM alum, so we appreciate you giving back to your alma mater and helping our students. From Mississippi College School of Law, we have Mr. Jay Armstrong, who serves as the Director of Admissions. So we're thrilled to have Jay here. And I attended Mississippi School of Law, I won't tell you how long ago, but a little bit ago. So I'm thrilled that they are here and participating with us. University of Mississippi School of Law, Ole Miss. We are thrilled to have Dean Betty Bradley here with us. She serves as the Assistant Dean for Admissions and Scholarships. So thank you very much to each and every one of you. We'll get things started now, and that'll keep us on track with our time. We'll start with Katie. Katie, we'd love to hear from you and hear your strategies and your tips for our students about law school admissions.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Jolie, for giving me this opportunity today. I'm so glad that me and all of my colleagues are going to be able to talk to students about law school. What I was going to do is to talk a little bit about our application process and then give you a little bit more information about Alabama law itself, because while it's really nice to know what you should do on an application, it might also be helpful to know why you should apply to Alabama law. I promise I'll be brief. And I'm not going to subject you to my terrible, ugly PowerPoint today. I'm just going to talk. So let me walk through this with you. So Alabama law, or really when you're applying to any law school, right? The goal that you're trying to reach is that you want to build the best possible application package. You're wanting to leave a lasting impression on the reader. And you're going to have several readers at most law schools. You're going to have your application read through a minimum of 3 times when you apply to UA by separate people, and it could possibly be more. Plus, you're also going to be, your application is going to be given to our admissions committee to review when they're making their final decisions as well. So that's a fairly big audience, especially if you multiply it over the several law schools that you will probably apply to. Mm-hmm. So how do you make this great application package? Well, first of all, you're going to want to do as well as you can on entrance exams for law school. All law schools take the Lsat. Many other law schools like Alabama will also take the GRE. There may be requirements around GRE scores, so you might want to check with individual law schools about that. But honestly, you want to do as well as possible. For most law schools, the Lsat score is the biggest indicator of how you're going to do in law school, and it will accordingly be given the most weight in your application. So going through and doing as well as possible is paramount. I always recommend at least 100 study hours for taking the Lsat. And I know that sounds like a lot, but it is a very different standardized test. It's not going to be like any other standardized test you've seen before. If you've taken a practice one, you probably know what I'm talking about. And it's worth it to really put in the effort to learn the logic games, logical reasoning, and so on. So please do as well as possible there. Your GPA is also important. Again, for most law schools, it's very, very important, but not quite as important as your test scores. But it is, again, important to keep your GPA up as much as possible, whether you're, double majoring, just have one major, whatever it is. There is no major that you have to have for law school. We see applicants come through every year from everywhere from STEM to poli-sci to music, and we love having well-rounded applicants of all kinds. So don't feel like your major is any impediment to law school. You're going to have to submit all of your post-secondary coursework, whether it's at your primary institution or any institutions that you visited at during your college career. So that's also something to keep in mind. You're going to want to collect all of those transcripts, or at least get them sent to LSAC for your application. And then, when it comes down to the individual law school application, you should follow the instructions that law schools give you. If they're not clear, absolutely reach out to us. We want to make sure that you understand each part of the application before you submit it. One thing that, you're probably going to submit to most law schools is a personal statement. For Alabama law, most personal statements are written in 11 or 12 point font, double spaced. Most people take maybe 1.5 to 3 pages for their personal statement. And they're answering 3 questions for us, ideally. Who am I? Why do I want to attend law school, or Alabama law in particular, because that shows that you've done your homework? And what do I hope to achieve with my law degree when I get out? Those are the kinds of questions that, honestly, most law schools will want answered within your personal statement, but be sure to read the prompt. When it comes to formatting that personal statement, your style and content are really important. So make sure it's, as good as possible. I read mine out loud probably 10 or 12 times before submitting it, and had a couple of people proofread it for me as well. So, honestly, you can't really be too careful with that personal statement. Furthermore, we're going to want a resume. Most law schools are going to ask you for one. You should include at least the last 2 to 3 positions that you've held, whether they're part-time or full-time. Pretty much if you've worked during college, include that work. If you want to include employment during high school, we will look at it. Not all law schools care. Again, that's something you might want to take a look at. And you should definitely include your honors and activities outside of work also. So if you're very involved on campus or in the community, or honestly, you engage in any kind of regular activity, whether that's playing on the school football team or volunteering for Habitat for Humanity, put that on your resume. We want to see who you are. If there's anything on your resume that we wouldn't understand, and that can be true especially of job positions, you should explain it. Explain what your job duties are. If you were the officer of a club, explain what your officer duties are. And if you did anything especially innovative or were rewarded with promotions or leadership positions in your activities, definitely something that should be on your resume. Do not feel like you have had to intern for a law firm or for a senator or anything else. Those things can be very helpful in terms of helping you decide what you might want to look at or do in law school, but they're not really dispositive. They're not going to change your application status one way or another. It's just helpful for you. And then, of course, all law schools aren't the same when it comes to letters of recommendation either, but generally speaking, we're going to be pretty similar. Alabama law accepts 1 to 4 letters of recommendation with your application. We recommend that your first line of recommenders should come out of your professors, academic advisors, and work supervisors, whether that is internship, full-time work, volunteer work. Those folks have seen your work product. They've seen what you're like, as a team player or an individual worker, and they're going to be able to give us an idea of what you'd be like in law school as well. I am not saying that you cannot use personal or coworker letters of recommendation. I've seen some really good ones, but those folks may not have supervised you as much as possible, as much as others. They might not know you as well, and certainly with personal recommenders who have known you from childhood, they may have a little bit of distance in terms of being able to give us actual anecdotes about your capabilities. So I would just tread lightly. And this is going to vary by law school too, but if you know an alum well enough to have them write a letter of recommendation for you, most law schools will look favorably upon that. So again, it will not necessarily be dispositive on your application, but it is something nice to have. And so, very briefly, why should you come to Alabama law? Why should you even apply here? Well, there are several things that I think Alabama law does particularly well. And I'm an alum of the program, though, so full disclosure, I'm very biased. But one thing that we do is we have a very personalized admissions process. From the time that you apply, we're going to be doing holistic reviews of your application. We're going to have lots of information events, a little bit more starting in the fall, I think, once COVID issues have passed. And then also for our admitted students, we do a ton of events and sessions, whether online or in person. Of course, our in-person offerings are limited, but they're right now, and will expand again in the fall. Our faculty and students are also very, very friendly. While this is a competitive law school environment, it is not a cutthroat, sabotage-heavy environment at Alabama law. We're very friendly. We're going to assign you a student mentor and a faculty advisor the minute you matriculate, so you'll have folks that can help you. And you'll also be able to join student organizations as a 1L. You can't necessarily do everything in law school as a 1L, but you definitely can join student organizations, and we'll even have a special day for you to sign up for those organizations and get to know more about them. I also wanted to hit on a few other things that you can do, especially once you kind of get into your 2 and 3L years. We have 4 academic law journals that you can write onto. We have over 15 trial advocacy and moot court teams that you can try out for. We have 7 clinics where you can get hands-on experience helping locals with their legal issues. And those clinics range from domestic violence to criminal defense to all the way to entrepreneurship and nonprofit work. So they are great. The other great thing about our clinics is that we actually offer a clinic guarantee. No lotteries, no rankings. If you want to do a clinic, you'll do it before you graduate, period. That's it. It makes it so much easier to make sure that you can get hands-on experience if you want it before you graduate. We also have a heavy public interest focus at the law school, among other things. We also focus heavily on governmental affairs. We have international and comparative law programs that you might also be interested in, complete with study abroad opportunities. And we offer a variety of dual degrees and the ability to craft your own dual degree. So if you have always wanted to get your JD and your MA and say art history, that is possible. And you can talk to me about it, or really any other master's or PhD program that might be here at the capstone. We have 3 certificate programs, International Comparative Law, Governmental Affairs, Public Interest, and we're adding a special constitutional law program that should be up and running in the fall. And when it comes to student organizations, there are more than 30 of them. So honestly, we will get you involved one way or another if you want to be involved. And that's really it. Like I said, I didn't want to take a lot of time, but I did kind of want to give you an overview. That way, if any questions come up during Q&A, you have some information to base those questions on. Thank you so much.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Katie. That's very helpful. Okay, next, Mr. Jake Henry from LSU Law.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, thank you. Lisa, just to confirm and clarify, I'm just giving an overview of the institution.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Any helpful tips you may have for, prospective applicants?
got it. So as Lisa shared earlier, I am currently the Assistant Dean for Student Affairs at the Law Center. For 9 years, I served as our Director of Admissions. Now I supervise admissions, career services, and the registrar's office. So I'm still sort of involved. I am still currently reviewing files. So I think I still know what I'm talking about. I graduated from Southern Miss back in 2003. That may be before some of you were born. Not you, Jay. And I want to give a shout out to Katie. Normally, if this was before the fall 2020 semester, I'd talk a lot of smack about Alabama. Normally, when I step foot on campus in Tuscaloosa, I talk all the smack, especially after that national championship in 2019. But I don't have the standing to do that anymore, so I'm just going to talk law school today. LSU is the flagship institution in Louisiana. I consider us a flagship institution of the region. I heard Lisa mention that you all are going to be considering or learning about the different legal systems. As some of you may know, Louisiana is the only civil code jurisdiction in the country. A lot of people think that we're in the minority in this country, but worldwide, about 60% of the world still practices or still uses a civil code system. Here at LSU, we give you both. You have the option to pursue both a common law track, which is the same track that you'll find at any other law school in the country. But we also give you the option to pursue an optional diploma in comparative law, which basically focuses on the civil code system. We're the only law school in the country that allows you to do both at the same time. There are some law schools that will allow you to choose between common law or civil law. But like I said, we're the only one in the country that allows you to do both at the same time. We have been consistently ranked a best value institution for the value that you get in your education versus the amount of money you pay for the education. As far as the application process, for the most part, I agree with everything Katie said. I echo everything Katie said. Most of our application will be very similar. One thing I'd like to warn you about is, as I know that many of you will be submitting multiple law school applications, read the instructions for each institution carefully. Most law schools are going to require a personal statement, but a law school in Oklahoma may require that you answer a particular question for your personal statement. We don't have a question for our personal statement. We're just asking you to tell us about yourself. Normally, when I talk about the application process, most law schools don't have an interview process. Your application is your interview. Put forth as much information as you would like for that committee to utilize in making a decision on your file. Here at LSU, we do employ a holistic review of applications, and what that means is everything in the file is considered. As Katie said, Lsat is important, GPA is important. Every year we do a correlation study at LSU just to see, what is bringing the most value to our applications. At LSU, we tend to put a lot of faith into the GPA. So if you have done well academically, traditionally those students do well at LSU. So if for our median LSAT score for fall 2020 was a 155, but if for some reason that doesn't fit your profile, I am not saying that you should not apply. Everything in the file is important to us. We also include an optional diversity statement on our application. I'd just like to point out that diversity has a very, very broad definition. Some people tailor a very narrow definition to the term diversity. Diversity is whatever diversity means to you. And so it is up to you to encourage us to believe what you're putting forth on the application will benefit us as an institution. We require 2 letters of recommendation. We will accept up to 3. And this is where I'm going to differ a little bit from what Katie mentioned. I strongly advise against personal letters of recommendation. We actually have on our website, we advise you do not submit a personal letter of recommendation. Me personally, when I review a file, if I see a personal letter of recommendation, I stop reading. We view this as an academic decision. We are making this based on academics, not based on who you know. So again, this is where, you know, reading the rules, finding out what the law school is looking for becomes important. I'd also differ a little bit. I don't think that it's that important to have a letter from an alum. What's more important for me when I see a letter is that this person has had either an opportunity to evaluate you academically or professionally. So an employer letter or a faculty letter. When it comes to faculty, I don't care what degree they have. I don't care what title they have. What's most important to me is that they have evaluated you in an academic setting. We have 9 clinics. We have 3 journals, more than 40 student organizations. And if for some reason we don't have an organization that fits your interest, you're more than welcome to create your own. One thing I like to say about LSU, we have a good time. We take care of business, but we have a really good time in Louisiana. There's a reason, and I know some of you may be from Mobile and you're going to say that, oh, Mardi Gras originated in Mobile, but we perfected it here in Louisiana. So, you know, that same culture is thick here on our campus. We have a very unique environment. We're in the SEC. So, you know, a lot of our students have a really good time when they're here. But again, they take care of business at the same time. I think that's all I have for now. I'd like to add one more thing. I graduated from Southern Miss in 2003. When I was there was no pre-law advisor. And if there was, I didn't know where they were. So I think that all of you should take advantage of the fact that you have 2 pre-law advisors. And I met with Jolie several months ago, but take advantage. It's clear that you all have a pre-law advisor that is interested in your success, that is interested in helping you get to law school. Take advantage. It's more valuable than you know. So Southern Miss to the top.
Thank you, Jay. That was great. All right, next up, we have Mississippi College School of Law, Jay Armstrong, Director of Admissions.
All right, I want to thank you for having me this afternoon. You know, I hope that everybody's doing well, staying healthy and all that good stuff. And hopefully before long, we'll be able to do these things in person again. I'm really looking forward to that day. So, you know, the application process, I would say for a lot of us is very similar. At MC, you know, we review the whole person concept on the file, but, you know, don't take that as LSAT and GPA aren't important, because those really are the 2 most important factors in your file. You know, if you're not a good test taker, when we're reviewing your file, we're going to lean on that GPA a little more heavily than the LSAT score. You know, our admissions committee here really likes GPA because the GPA is a culmination of 4 years of work. It shows how you know, perform academically, how you get along with professors and things of that nature. You know, not all GPAs are the same. There are some majors that are harder than others, and we take that into account as well. You know, say somebody that was a biology major, their GPA may not be as high as somebody that majored, and I'm not knocking any major over another, but political science or history. But, you know, at the same time, you know, we look at how you did in those courses and things like that. So we really kind of dig into, you know, the courses that you took and you know, how you performed in those courses. So, you know, as you're choosing the courses that you take, make sure you choose courses that challenge you, because that is reviewed by our admissions committee. We do require a personal statement. The great thing about our personal statement is you can write about anything you want. But generally, it's a good idea to tell us, you know, why you want to come to law school, who you are, you know, just kind of the same high points that were mentioned before. It needs to be a well-written document. It's, you know, there is a writing sample in your LSAT packet, but, you know, that personal statement is the writing sample before the committee. So not only is it telling us your story, but it's telling us how you write. And, you know, if it's full of grammatical errors, then, you know, there's some problems there. We require a resume. if, we want to just kind of see, what your work experience and all that good stuff looks like. So, make sure you have an up-to-date resume. We don't require any letters of recommendation, but we do recommend two. Don't take that as meaning that you don't have to submit any. They are important. I stand with Jake on what he said about the letters of recommendation. I prefer to read letters of recommendation from faculty members. I think that academic letters of recommendations are important because we are making an academic decision. If for some reason, you're closer with your boss or people that you've worked with or something like that, say you're taking classes remotely, what have you, then would be the time to get the professional letters of recommendation. So, that's the majority of our application process without repeating too much that was said before me. Now, let me talk a little about Mississippi College School of Law. We're located in downtown Jackson. Our location is here is great. We're 2 blocks from the state capitol, 3 blocks from the court, the Supreme Court, 4 blocks from the Attorney General's office. 48% of the practicing attorneys in the state of Mississippi are within about a 2 square mile radius of us. So, it's a really good location to come to law school. Some people will choose us sometimes because they're easily distracted in the SEC environment, which is, fine. And so this is kind of a business environment. But, here's the deal. We're close enough to a majority of the SEC schools that you can still, or any school for that matter, that your team is going to play on the weekend. And, you're able to be there for sporting events and things like that. So, and I realize I'm talking to Southern Miss students, but that's one thing that comes up. Yeah. Jake's brother is also a MC Law alum. So, and he's an amazing attorney. But anyway, so here we have 9 clinics, 8 certificate programs. Like LSU, if you're from Louisiana, we offer a civil law certificate. So if you're from Louisiana and you want to go back to Louisiana, I believe we're the only law school outside of the state of Louisiana that offers that program. Our student body is very geographically diverse. We have students from coast to coast, so not all of them are local. And but the opportunities that you have here, this is a great place where you can be a big fish in a small pond and take advantage of all the opportunities that the capital city has, the capital city and the largest city in Mississippi has to offer.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate those remarks. All right, and last but not least, University of Mississippi, also in the SEC. That's a big deal.
Don't quite have the bragging rights Katie and Jake do. I can say that we like to have a good time here too. But the football is kind of hit or miss for us. But yeah, the SEC. Thanks, Lisa.
It was always a hit, right?
Right. I'm Bette Bradley, and yes, I'm at Ole Miss Law in Oxford. Thank you all for having me, and it's good to see everyone, all my colleagues on the call. I think they've done a really beautiful job of describing kind of the nuts and bolts of the application process. I don't know that there's anything that I can add to that. I will just say, I guess, sort of as an overall suggestion, that I think that, giving yourself an ample amount of time to work on your application and plan your timeline and engage in this process is really important. This is your first step into your professional career. And you want, every step of the way from the first step on to be a positive one and one that you're going to feel good about, and that, you feel good about putting your best foot forward. And it just takes some time. Like, this isn't one of those things where you're like, okay, I'm going to knock my law school applications out over the weekend, right? it really isn't that. And so, you know, you've got a fantastic resource in that you've got this pre-professional advising, pre-law resource at USM. So use them and start to think pretty early about your timeline, because this is several months of work when it comes to studying for the LSAT, planning when you're going to take it, and just preparing your application. It really does take some time and thought and care. And the second overall thing, and it just sort of piggybacks on this, is that, you know, this is the start of your professional career. And so remember that when you are doing all the fun stuff that college kids do, and remember that on your, like with your social media. I can't stress that enough. Like, it's time, if you're thinking about law school, to present yourself as a person with a professional reputation. And so, you know, hold your head high and clean up your social media. And don't get into any trouble if you can. And so, yeah, and just give yourself some time. Like, this is a big decision, and all of the schools on this call are great law schools. You're going to apply to, you know, probably more than one school, and we all have different things to offer. You're going to get a great legal education, but there are other parts of the puzzle, right? Like, you mean, you know, there are financial considerations, there's the geography, there's the program itself, all of that, you know, the ranking, if that's important to you. There's so many factors that that you weigh when you're making this decision, and that takes time too, right? And if it's not a place that you're familiar with, but it's one of those schools that, you know, is a great program and it matches your interests, and you get in and you get some money, like, go visit. You know, like, you get a really good idea of just sort of the vibe of the place when you go and visit the law school. And I think that's really important, to find a good fit for you, and, you know, being able to weigh all of those factors. It just takes some time. So just give yourself that time. You know, don't put yourself in a situation where, you know, it's March and you're like, okay, I guess I need to start thinking about the LSAT, or it just takes some time. And I think all of my colleagues would agree, like, we're seeing an increase right now in applicant bizim. And I think that has something to do with the current situation that we're living in. Our applications are up. And so that is another reason to just give yourself some time. So that would be my overall comment. And I think everybody did a fantastic job of talking about sort of the components of what you have to submit with your application. In terms of our program, like my colleagues, you know, we're going to give you the foundation, teach you sort of the traditional legal doctrine that you need, you know, especially your first year, and then beyond that, some as well. After your first year, you sort of transition into balancing, you know, learning the classroom stuff and learning practical skills that you're going to need on the job. So we really work your second and third years to balance those two things. So we're trying to get you exposure to as much as we can so that you can figure out what you like doing and what you're good at, and kind of what area of law you want to go into after you graduate. And we all do that in a number of different ways. The ways that we that I'll tell you about that we really work hard on are through our advocacy boards. And so our students have the opportunity to participate with our trial advocacy team or our moot court board or a negotiation board, and work on hypothetical problems, but then go and compete against other law schools, doing a mock trial or an oral argument. So that is a good way to get some practice in, and our students really enjoy taking part in that. We also have a really strong clinical program. So we've got 7 clinics, and y'all will start hearing more and more about clinics as you engage in this process. But Katie did a good job of describing it's basically you're working under the supervision of your clinical professor, who's also a practitioner, taking on real clients, and you are the team. You're the team working with that professor. And most of the times clinics are going to serve people who can't afford legal representation. So it's just a phenomenal way to serve the state, to work with practitioners who are the best known lawyers in their field, and get some really good practical experience. And so we've got, then they're in all different areas. We've got a transactional clinic that helps small businesses. And then we also have a MacArthur Justice Clinic that works on criminal justice reform and civil rights litigation throughout the state. So I think, most students can find one that they're interested in, and we also guarantee a spot in a clinic as well. We've got a great externship program, which you can get 12 hours of externship credit in a semester. And those are typically experiences in judges' chambers or district attorney's offices or public defenders, federal and state agencies. And then we really encourage students to work during the summer. I think that goes for all law schools. So you're going to, meet with a career services person that's housed in the law school. They're going to get to know you, and they're going to help you starting in, your first year, trying to find a job during the summer. And often students will split their time between multiple places, because that's really going to help you. That exposure is going to help you figure out what you like, and a lot of times what you don't like, and what you're good at, and what people you like to be around. And so yeah, we really want our students to work after their first and second years, and oftentimes that'll end up leading to your first job offer. So after that first year, where you are just getting that foundation and sort of changing your way of thinking and learning how to think like a lawyer, we're really trying to balance doing what lawyers do and learning still. And I think that, that makes certainly going to law school a lot more fun, and hopefully prepares y'all better for when you graduate after 3 years. So I think that's all I've got. But thank you, and this is a great turnout. Thanks everybody for being here.
I agree. I have one question. I would like to ask the panelists to share maybe 1 or 2 kind of no-nos or don'ts, maybe some ways or some things that you run across professionally that might hurt a student's application, make it less than competitive. We won't go in any particular order, so you guys can just chime in.
I'll just go, since I was just talking. One of the I think, and this was touched on when everyone was talking, the personal statement is such an important component of your file. It's the first thing that I look at when I read files, because I want to see that before I see anything else. Because that, to me, that is kind of like, that's the best, like that's the most like an interview that we can get. And so, and like we've said, a lot of us are kind of general in what we're asking you to write about. And then some people really want you to touch on certain things. And so I just think you want to be really careful in reading the instructions of the application you're filling out. if you're applying to multiple places, it's easy to kind of, you've got all the information in there, you're just getting through them. But, if you've talked specifically about another school in your personal statement, like obviously you're going to want to change that for each one, but you just need to, be thoughtful and proofread. But that is certainly a thing that I see oftentimes where I'm like, I don't know that they were really writing for us. So read instructions and proofread would be, one of my big.
Thank you.
I was getting ready to say exactly what Betty said. In fact, I've got a personal statement in our group of files this week, and they really want to come to Ole Miss really bad. So it's a common thing, and so
Get it all the time, Jay.
It's just paying attention to detail, But it's kind of funny because everybody's noticed it, and so there are times that may be the deal breaker for you. So make sure you tailor every personal statement. If you're going to tailor it to a school, make sure you have the right school in your personal statement.
Thank you.
I'll echo that. Oh, sorry. We deny at least one person every year because they sent us a letter for a different law school. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 people a year, and it is almost always an automatic denial of your application at Alabama. I'm just going to warn you now. So at best wait list. So please be careful. Also, it is okay to talk about controversial topics in your personal statement, but be real careful how you frame them. I remember seeing an example personal statement. It was a real one from a few years ago. And the very first line of it was, I am a proud member of a racist organization. And that person went on to clarify later in their paper what they meant. But I know personally that person was also denied from 3 schools they could have easily gotten into based on that personal statement. So be very, very careful how you frame things that or that could potentially be controversial when you're writing to a law school.
Thank you, Katie. Great advice.
I agree with everything that's been said. I'll add a couple of tidbits. Number one, diversify your application. And what I mean by that, the information that you have in your resume should not be regurgitated in your personal statement. The information that you have in your diversity statement should not be regurgitated in your personal statement. Like I said, this is your opportunity to push as much information as you can to the admissions committee. Also, make your application your own. I don't want to hear about your grandparents. I don't want to hear about your pets. This is about you. We are admitting you to law school. So, your person. I know grandma is a lovely soul, but they should not be the focus of your application. And one last thing that it's almost embarrassing that I have to say this, but I see it. Don't use profanity anywhere in your application. It's just unnecessary. One of the things you're going to learn when you go to law school is how to be a great writer. Start by doing that in advance of law school and find other words instead of profane language. I use profane language sometimes too, but I would never do it in a law school application. So please don't do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Very helpful, Jake. We appreciate that. And it really is time to put your best foot forward. Law schools are not going to see you all or interact with you face to face usually. So in lieu of an interview, you need to, I hate to say sell yourself, but you need to put your best foot forward and demonstrate to that law school why they should choose you, because it is a very competitive process. There are many, many applicants, and so you need to be a cut above. So I could go on and on. I always tell students, don't come see me if you don't want to go to law school, because I'm going to have you go. I loved it. And, but it is the beginning of a socialization process where you are becoming a very different person. They are molding you into a lawyer, how to think like a lawyer, how to behave like a lawyer, and how to become a professional. And so it is and should be a very different way of acting and behaving. So, and I think all of that is to each person's benefit for the long term. So I'm going to be quiet, and I would like to turn it over to our students now and open the floor for any questions they might want to ask that we have not thought to address. So anyone out there, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself. I think maybe Jolie has to do that. Any questions from the group? No? Oh, hey, Gabrielle.
I guess my question would be, if you all got an application from someone who has like an unconventional major that wouldn't necessarily be pre-law or anything like that, like a science or music or something, what would be something you would want to see in their application?
Gabriella, I'll respond. You can go to law school with any degree. So there really is no such thing as, at least I don't view any major as unconventional. You know, a lot of people think you have to major in political science or English to go to law school. I don't think that could be further from the truth. My current dean is a chemistry major. Me personally, I'd recommend that you treat your application just like any other student would. Perhaps that, you know, if you want to add that in your diversity statement as to why that makes you diverse. But what I'm more interested in looking at is your academic track record. That's what's important to me. Difficulty of major and difficulty of institution does come into play. But ultimately, I'm more concerned with how you've done academically, regardless of the major. I am of the belief that law school is designed to teach you everything that you know. So I don't expect any major out there to prepare you for law school, even the political sciences or English or whatever. I'll tell you a funny story, and it's also a little embarrassing. When I went to law school, we had to take a grammar test, and I failed semicolons. I graduated college, and I didn't know how to properly use a semicolon, and I couldn't get out of that class until I demonstrated that I could use a semicolon. So that's why I am of the belief that law school is designed to teach from the ground up. So I wouldn't put a lot of, you know, don't worry about the major. We see it all. I've seen music, I've seen chemistry, I've seen engineering, I've seen political science, you name it, we've seen it. Good question though.
Great. Seth, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, ma'am. I believe it was Betty earlier who mentioned to clean up the social media presence, and I did know that law schools would look at social media presence, but if you don't have a social media presence on any platform, would you recommend getting one and starting to kind of compile a good look, or just staying out of it entirely?
I'm seeing heads shaking.
I mean, I definitely would, yeah, you don't need to create a social media presence for law school by any means. I mean, some law schools will, do some outreach through social media. That would be the only benefit. But if you're off it and you don't have any interest in it, then I say stay where you are.
Thank you.
If I could, I just want to add, you know, not only do you have to worry about law schools checking out your social media, but some bars have started to review social media of bar applicants. But social media is just the tip of the iceberg. When you decide that you want to go to law school, you should start living your life like you want to go to law school. A lot of stuff that you do, any trouble that you get in, even your credit, may not bar you from being admitted to law school, but it could very well hinder your efforts to take a particular bar. So, you know, a year doesn't pass, and I don't have time to check out social media, but members of my team do. And so we routinely see people on social media with beers turned up, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think it's necessary to create something unless you want to engage with a particular institution. But if you do have social media, it can come back to haunt you.
Last year, we had a student that we had to reach out to for more information about something in his file. And so I reached out to him to get more information. And I felt like, the conversation was very clear. The committee's looking at your file, but in order to make a decision, we're going to need this, that, and the other thing. Well, for whatever reason, the guy felt the need to go on to Facebook and put that he had been accepted to Mississippi College School of Law. And that was the end of the discussion from that point forward. I reached out to him with a phone call and then followed up with an email, and it was very clear what our intentions were, that we needed more information in order to make that admissions decision. And so when he decided to put the cart before the horse, one of my admissions committee members sent me a screenshot of saying he'd been accepted to Mississippi College School of Law. And that was the end of it. And he would have been accepted otherwise.
Thank you. And that's so important. And Jake, I see your comment in the chat. Make sure you have a decent email address.
And a decent voicemail.
Message.
Good, how are you?
Please. Like a lot of us are gonna have faculty members and deans call you. So, yeah.
Put your best foot forward. Now, I like that. Start living like a lawyer. Live like a professional. It's time.
And when you reach out, go ahead. Sorry.
Hey, Jay.
What?
When that student did that, did you report them for misconduct?
We did not.
Okay.
We thought about it, but the committee said not to pursue it, just denied.
Students, what I just asked Jay, so Jay had the ability, so once that student lied about what happened with Mississippi College, Jay could have submitted a report to what we refer to as the misconduct committee. If that would have happened, every school that student had applied to would have received a report that, hey, another law school thinks that this student did something, out of the ordinary, and you should know about it. And that could have drastic consequences across the board. I've seen admission offers withdrawn because of misconduct reports. So Jay, you did him a solid, but I understand.
But we talked to him and told him that, that was why, and we said we were going to take no further action. But that was the decision of the admissions committee. It wasn't mine. Back to the voicemail thing. One thing that, we do reach out to prospective students. I would suggest clearing your voicemail box. I hate trying to get a hold of people and it says the voicemail box is full. I don't know how you're going to operate as a professional if you don't have voicemail, because I know I'm not always available to answer the phone. But, if somebody calls me and leaves a voicemail, I do return their phone call. And I'd hate to think that, you miss, hey, we're accepting you and we're offering you, X amount of dollars as a scholarship because your voicemail box is full and we can't leave you a message.
Absolutely. The misconduct report, is that through LSAC or how does, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Lisa, we basically submit submit a report. They have an entire committee that investigates it. And whether they have found cause or not, they will submit a report. If there is no cause, they won't submit a report to other law schools. But if you are found guilty of misconduct, other law schools will, every law school that you've applied to will receive that report.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. That's important information. So again, even in the application process, I think the key is to be candid, to be transparent, to be honest, and to behave accordingly.
And keep in mind too that this is a long process. I applied when I was going through this, the minute applications opened, and in some cases it took 6 months for me to hear from a law school. I'm not saying you can't reach out to law schools and ask about your application, but please be mindful that it's really, really difficult for us to give you timelines most of the time. And if you call and you scream or you email us rude things, you will be denied. So, and that has happened already this year, which I expected, we can't tell you when we have staffing changes most of the time. We can't tell you if staff are out sick. We cannot tell you what the committee is doing. We can't tell you a lot of stuff. So please be mindful of that. And just please, we're people too. So this year has been extraordinarily hard with applicants being very upset with law schools and LSAC. And so I'm just begging you guys, please be decent to us.
Absolutely.
I had a question.
Yes.
I was just wondering, so if you wanted to specialize in a certain form of law, how would you, I have been in nursing school before, and I've recently changed my major to forensic science. And if I ever did law, I'd probably want to do something on the medical side. So I was just kind of wondering, like, how would you even go about that?
You have to look for opportunities in those industries, generally during the summer. Some law schools will offer certificate programs or other focused programs of study, but the JD is generally a very, kind of build your own, you get the foundations and then it becomes a little bit more build your own after that.
Okay.
So yeah, so you look for specific classes, you look for specific employment opportunities, clinic opportunities, whatever there might be out there in that area of law. Get really well versed, get in good with those firms. And hopefully once you graduate, you'll have a place to go. And I can speak, I think, for everybody that our career services offices, we take where you want to go very seriously.
Yeah, thank you for that information.
Hey, Victoria, let me give you just a different way of thinking about it. You don't have to know what you want to do. Like so many, myself included, so many law students go to law school thinking this is what I'm going to do. And then they learn about all of the other arenas where you can practice law or use a law degree, and a lot of people change their mind. So I wholeheartedly support majoring in something that you enjoy so that you'll enjoy learning about it. But you don't have to know right now. You don't even have to know on the first day of law school what kind of lawyer you want to be, or even if you want to practice law. I believe that the law degree is one of the most versatile degrees out there, and you can do a lot of things with the law degree. If you look at a lot of the Fortune 500 CEOs, a lot of them have law degrees. So just keep that in mind. Whatever ideas you have, they're great, but you don't have to stick with them. You can change your mind. And even if when you graduate law school, let's say you become this huge, criminal defense lawyer, you can do that for 5 years and say, I want to do something else. So you can always change your mind.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sorry, I have a question. How do you suggest that future students prepare for the Lsat?
I always tell students that LSAT prep is a very individualized process. However, there are some really great free materials out there, and so that's where I suggest that you start. LSAC has a partnership with Khan Academy. You can go on there, you can do a self-assessment. It's absolutely free. They'll walk you through the process. The thing is I've had people that have started there and they said, hey, Jay, the computer stuff isn't for me. I'd rather have a book. Well, there's no harm in going to Barnes and Noble and getting some materials. LSAC has materials. There's a lot of different ways you can prep for the LSAT. I'm cheap. The way I suggest doing it is kind of exalting the free to cheap materials first, and then go to the more expensive materials, because you can spend as much or as little as you want on LSAT prep. But I just recommend that you put in the time, because the LSAT score can be valuable. It can be the difference between getting into law school. It can be the difference between thousands of dollars worth of debt or almost zero debt. So the main thing is that you know yourself, and you know how you study, and you find a program that works for you, and you take advantage of it to the best of your ability.
Thank you.
Lisa, if I could, I just want to give one more bit of advice, and I'm going to have to sign off. First, I failed to thank you all for doing this. I think this is pretty awesome. I want to thank you students for taking the time out of your schedule for coming. One last thing I want to add, we talked a lot about staying out of trouble. In the event that you do get in trouble, it's 9 times out of 10, it's not going to keep you out of law school. What will keep you out of law school is if you are not honest about it. One of the integral components to being a lawyer is integrity. And you have to have integrity by putting forth whatever you've done. So if that means you got a DUI, what we see a lot here is people sneaking into football games without an ID, public drunkenness, whatever the case may be. At some point, it's going to come up. Even if your law school doesn't do a background check, the bar will. If the bar determines that the information that you put on your law school application does not coincide with what they have found in their background check, you're going to have problems. Be honest. That's all we care about. Everyone's done something, myself included. So don't think that you have to hide something because it's going to, it's going to keep you from getting in law school. That's not why we ask that question. We ask the question to know that you're going to be honest about it. So I know we put a lot of focus on staying out of trouble, but everyone makes mistakes. And like Katie said earlier, we're all human and we've all made them. So I wish you all the best. Baton Rouge is only 2.5 hours south of Hattiesburg. Come visit. We'd love to have you. And I want to say one last time, Southern Miss to the top. Good luck to all of you. And I put my email address in the chat. If I can be of assistance to any of you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Jay, great seeing you, my man.
Jake, it was great seeing you, man. I hadn't seen you in a while, so it's good to hear your voice.
All right. Same here, man. You all take care.
Thank you so much. Thank
All right.
you. The remarks have been incredibly helpful. Jay, do you have anything to add to Jake's parting comments?
Yeah, let me add something else. It's a lot easier if you include everything on the front end.
Yeah.
One thing that, and this is me personally, this is, if you work with me, you'll understand I'm very straight to the point. It irritates me when somebody gets through law school and they didn't disclose something on their application, and I have to go back and take it to the admissions committee and I have to write a letter to the bar. So I'll think a lot better of you if you just disclose it up front, because it really, like Jake said, we've all made mistakes. It really doesn't matter.
Right.
We just want you to disclose it. That's the main thing.
And that is key. I mean, disclose it, own it, and let's deal with it. The earlier, the better. Yeah.
And don't make excuses about what you did. Just own it and move on. I don't care what happened during the situation. If it looks like you're trying to buck responsibility, then that's where, your actions become an issue. And so, just own it, say, I'm sorry, I should have done better, and move on. And the committee will totally respect you for that.
And I've told prospective law students, I'm like, disclose. You cannot go wrong with the disclosure. You can go wrong with trying to hide it or lie about it or what have you. And so conduct yourself in the same way that you're going to want your future clients to, be open and candid with you about their behavior. You're not going to want surprises at trial or at a motion hearing. So, go ahead and start conducting yourself, in a professional way. And that's just, it's a good life lesson that serves us all well. So, we are, we're gonna shut it down. This has been incredible. Jay, thanks for hanging in there with us. In the interest of time, we're a little over, but that's great for great reasons. So Jolie, any parting comments for the group?
Just to thank everyone for coming. We appreciate it. And I put the link for future events. We don't have any new ones posted yet, but they will be those panels that Dr. Norred mentioned. So be sure to bookmark that page and check back. And of course, you'll receive flyers. And then I just want to encourage everyone. This was such a successful panel and so many good questions. Please reach out to these representatives. I know they want to talk to you one-on-one. So please, if you have an interest in their law school or you have a question about something they said today, please, we can get you connected if you need help getting connected to someone at a certain school. So just let us help you get connected so that you can keep this conversation and momentum going. So thank you all so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jay. We appreciate you and MC for all you do.
You're welcome. Thank y'all for having us, and I hope to see y'all soon.
We'll be in touch.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.